Do you think that this is going to be viewed as an attack on him and the event itself?
Once they booked Kate Mulgrew, who plays Captain Janeway in Star Trek Voyager, and she's a big, she's a big celebrity. They paid her, Dean Icon this week coming up, paid her $30,000, Kate Mulgrew, to attend the convention for one day.
Yeah, I see a lot of celebrities endorsing this. Are they aware of this? I even see like people like Seth MacFarlane partnering with Gaaays in Space. He did have this what looks to be an expensive wedding. I mean, I can't imagine she's officiating.
Going down this rabbit hole now. We're going down this rabbit hole.
I cannot imagine she's officiating for free.
She was not. They haven't even been married for a year, and he's already putting him down. Like, I feel bad for Rich, because if I had been working and I went to school and I got the great education and I got my certifications and I was a programmer and I was doing all this stuff, and I had to empty out my entire life savings to help my new husband put on a Comic-Con that was failing, or to make up for the fact that my new husband's Comic-Con was failing. Like, I think Rich, he's so down the rabbit hole with Dan that he doesn't realize that he's Dan's meal ticket. If he can just generate enough money and get enough donations and get the Air Force to back them and all these different things. He says he's partnered with Hulu. Hulu shut them down. Like, I don't think Hulu knows that they're on that website.
Happy First Contact Day, everybody.
All right, everybody. Today I have a great story for you that was brought to me by a friend of the show. There's a great, I thought was great space program out there called Gaaays in Space. It was supposed to be this cool program where members of the LGBTQIA plus youth community get sent to space camp and are encouraged to enroll in STEM programs. However, despite it being founded in 2016, now there are allegations that have been alleged of misuse of donations against its founder, Dan Deevy. And we have none other than friend of the show, Matthew C. Egan, to give us the skinny on this. How have you been, Matthew? What's going on with the Gaaays in Space, man?
Well, first of all, hi. It's been a while. I've missed. It's really great to be back on the program. And everybody in your Discord community was so warm and like, oh my God, he's back. And it was just like, well, hell, I'll just live here now. But no, so this is a bit of a headache. I volunteered for this convention last year in 2023. It was the Galactic Diversity and Inclusion Convention hosted by Gaaays in Space in Philadelphia. And I fell for their, the guy's charismatic. They say they're going to do a bunch of stuff that helps people. I fell for it hard. So we do our work at the Peter Mayhew Foundation, and we take toys to sick kids, and we help families with medical bills. But then I have another organization called Content on Call, which is also a charity, and we help charities make content. And so one of the charities that we were helping was Gaaays in Space. And so we were there. We filmed this wedding. We filmed the event. We made a bunch of good content that really elevated what they were saying. But I quickly learned that what they were saying and what they were doing were not the same. They were making a bunch of promises. They were leveraging every diverse group they could think of that would help them, pander to people and get them to give them money. And most of the promises that they made just never were accomplished.
Now, when you say they, it seems like it was just one person. It looks to be a Dan Deevy, right? Am I?
Dan Deevy, yep.
Dan Deevy.
He's one of the co-founders. He's the president. He's not on the board, although he wrote himself a vote on the board, even though he's not on the board. If you're in a charity, the board of directors is actually who controls and tells the charity what to do. And then the president or the executive director actually does the execution of that. But any debt that is accumulated by the organization is owed by the board, right? So if you're the president and you're not on the board, any debt that is accrued isn't actually your debt. It's the people that are on the board. Okay.
So speaking of Dan Deevy and this event that looks to be coming up rather quickly.
Preview night is literally tomorrow. Yeah.
Do you think that this is going to be viewed as an attack on him and the event itself? Are you worried about any backlash potentially?
We were scheduled. I'm somebody that I see a problem and I help, right? And we offer to help. We had offered to do photo ops at this event, and that's not something we've ever done before. We don't own a photo op printer. I've worked with a bunch of photo op companies, but it's not something that we did. But I told him, hey, if you're worried about how expensive photo ops are, buy the printers. He needed to buy the printers, and we'll do it for you, and we'll figure out the rest. And the printers are probably going to cost him like $4,000. They're very expensive. And then I start hearing from the AV company, hey, they ripped me off for $10,000. They didn't pay their bill. I start hearing from a fan, hey, I loaned them a short-term loan, and this is a year ago, like 11 months ago, a short-term loan for $15,000, and that guy still hasn't seen any money, right? And so all these things that they were promising, and debts that they had, they're out there posting content about how great they are, but then they're not taking care of their responsibilities. They're not paying their debts. They had this whole program for scholarships. They promised they were going to send kids to space camp. And I was making content with them about how they were doing a great thing.
Okay.
That's part of the problem, right? Like, I'm out there making these videos saying, hey, they're doing these things. And I found out, how many kids did they send to space camp in 2023? 0.
Okay. Let's
kids
go.
Have they sent to space camp in 2024 so far? 0.
Wow. Now you're jumping way ahead of me, but let's go back to the debt part, because I have this email that looks to be a communication from a Mike Slammer to Dan Deevy about the debt per se. And it looks like he helped him out in 2023 in May. And he said, at the end of the event, Dan showed more than enough in his Eventbrite balance to cover what they owed. But he looks like he's been reaching out to him since May. Since the event happened, he just kept getting a runaround of not getting paid. And he learned that Dan Deevy had previous debt with the Marriott. Does Mike Slammer plan on taking any legal action against him, considering he has not been paid?
Yeah, so they originally, I want to, and again, this is to the best of my knowledge, the cost of AV services for the event was about $25,500, give or take. Mm-hmm. That's the last number that I heard, and I could be wrong. But it's tens of thousands of dollars, and they made some payments that they were able to make once they booked Kate Mulgrew, who plays Captain Janeway in Star Trek Voyager, and she's a big celebrity. They paid her Dean Icon this week coming up paid her $30,000, Kate Mulgrew, to attend the convention for one day.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, she's a big guest, and you can see at the bottom of that screenshot, hey man, thanks to Kate's away mission. So they have little breakout things, which honestly are really cool. Like, I think the away missions are a great idea. I told Dan this at the time, having side ticketed events where you can go and so in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the character of Julian Bashir, he throws darts with O'Brien from Star Trek The Next Generation. He was kind of a character that moved over to Deep Space Nine. And so they had an event where you could throw darts with the actor that played Julian Bashir. It was neat ideas. But then here they are saying, thanks to Kate's away mission, we finally brought in money. And so the next $1,000 that we owe you will hit, it is going to come over to you as soon as it hits the bank account. But then if you look up here, let me see right there in the middle, it says, finally, some good news. I have a small sponsorship coming in by the 19th. And I guess this is the 19th of June. Mm-hmm. And as soon as the sponsorship comes in, all of the money is going to go to you, to this debt that we owe. So think about that for a minute. So this is another organization that is sponsoring them, whether it's a grant or it's a sponsorship or whatever. That sponsorship was intended to do something.
Yeah,
right?
For a kid, right? For
and it's the space camp or help them, whatever. And he's saying right here in black and white, we got this sponsorship. It's not going to go to what we should be using it for. It's going to go to pay this debt from this convention that we hosted in 2023, right? Because they had such an expensive audiovisual setup, because Dan loves to put himself on a stage. He loves to see himself under the big lights. And so he paid big $25,000 for the AV kit, and their convention only had about 500 attendees. So if you look at Comic Palooza or Collecticon or Fan Expo, they have big AV budgets, right?
Of course.
But their AV budgets are because they have 40,000 attendees, right? And so here's this little convention with 500 attendees spending, $25,000 just on the AV for the stage. And a little bit later on in these pictures, you'll see why they spent all that money on this AV.
Now, is it illegal to like defraud like a donor? Like if you say, "Hey, I'm trying to feed the homeless or send kids to a space program," and they say, "Okay, well, we like what you're doing. Here's $10,000 to send kids to a space program," and you turn around and give that money to pay off a debt. Is that not like illegal in some way? Like I can't imagine that it's not.
I've worked in nonprofits for 11 years. And, I've been a director at the Peter Mayhew Foundation for 10. And I know that if you apply for a grant and they give you money, and they did apply for a grant that's later in these slides. But if you don't do what you promised, the grant giver has the right to say, hey, you need to give that money back because you didn't do with it what you said you were going to do. And, so that's, and then, there's always operating expenses. So some percentage always goes to operating expenses. That's why programs like Candid that review, how transparent with their financials an organization is being. And that's one of those things where like, don't give money to the Red Cross because so much of the money goes to overhead, right?
Staffing,
you have money to smaller boutique places that are really helping on the ground. But, the Red Cross using that money for overhead is not a crime, but it raises a bunch of ethical questions about if you say I'm going to collect money for a scholarship and you don't give a scholarship, is it a crime? Depends on how you do it and the format. But, it's unethical at the very least.
Yeah, unethical for sure. Now I'm looking at this, this guy has some debts going on. City View payment due.
June, May, all the way to November when they mentioned Kate Mulgrew. And now this image is from this year. So this isn't even around their event. This is now March of 2024.
Please hang in there.
Still trying to collect money.
What does it say? Hey, if you can please hang in there with us a little longer, I promise we will get the remainder paid on this as soon as we possibly can. Thanks again so much for your patience and understanding. This very small first time massive event producing nonprofit is hugely grateful for you guys. So the City View, he's owing City View money as well as Mike Slammer, as well as the Marriott, as well as a fan who donated 15.
So you're seeing the pattern that we see. And Dan will be quick to say, it's a bunch of haters. It's cyber bullies. He's accused me of hacking him. His own celebrities. So this document, this NSS. So I want to give full disclosure on this one, just for my peace of mind. My organization, Content on Call, also applied for the National Space Society grant. Mm-hmm. So somebody wants to say it's sour grapes, that we didn't get that grant, whatever. That would be, I understand if that's somebody's feeling, but for us, I don't like if you take a grant, and this one comes from Jeff Bezos, right? Like Amazon founder, Blue Origin, right. Like that money came and it was supposed to help kids. It's supposed to be about space. It's supposed to be about STEM careers. And so seeing them just blow it on a Comic-Con that lost tens of thousands of dollars, it really upsets me.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this proposal submission for projects, and it clearly says they're looking to send people between the ages of 15 to 18 to Space Academy. Each recipient was receiving all expense paid trip to the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama for a week-long event.
To Space Camp, and they said they had no idea. Like I reached out to them and they were like, "Oh, thank you for bringing this to our attention." Like they had no idea that they were even out there promising to spend this money to send.
I would imagine you have to qualify for it. It's not like, if you pay, you're in, right? I don't think it.
I think any child can go as long as there might be like some physical fitness requirements or something like that. I don't know how accessible Space Camp is because they go up into the space shuttle replicas and things like that. But so Dan said that we stole this document. It's always like this big conspiracy. We were sent this document by his executive director, who was the executive director at the time. She has resigned from the organization since then. Mm-hmm. But we were applying for the same grant. So as a friend, she sent me a copy of their grant application because it was an example of an application that had been approved. And so I didn't know a year ago, like I literally was sent this, I think last July. I didn't realize until like 3-4 weeks ago that I was holding this document that made all these promises. And then I was like, wait a minute. And I pulled up my Dropbox and I went back through my emails and I found it. And I was like, oh my God.
This is fate. This is fate
right here. They say further, the winners will be announced May 5th through the 7th at their convention 2023. And again, how many scholarships were given in 2023? 0. So they had it in this application. This is Dan's own words. Like they submitted this as an organization and they said, we are going to give the scholarships in 2023.
Jesus.
But of course, we know that they were at least $25,000 in the hole. And I don't even know what they owed the Marriott.
Yeah.
And this pisses me off too, and I imagine it'll piss you off. They're saying underserved neighborhoods. They're gonna build these maker spaces in underserved neighborhoods. Why even go there? Like you're an LGBT organization, and you're not wealthy. Like they raised maybe $20,000-$30,000 a year, right? So to say, oh, we're gonna make these maker spaces in underserved neighborhoods in both cities and towns all over the country, with what fucking money?
You say that to get the grant. That's you're pulling on the heartstrings.
Black and brown kids in these underserved neighborhoods, and saying, "Hey, we're going to help all these people also." And I spoke to a guy at the National Space Society, and he said, "Listen, one of the reasons why I voted yes is because they said this money was going to go to foster kids." And it's like, and you know why he voted yes? He's a foster parent that adopted one of the kids that he was fostering. So they leveraged the communities that he knew were going to, the labels, right? That he knew were important to people in his ask for money. Oh, underserved kids, foster kids, LGBT kids. Like,
oh yeah, you're hitting all the bases that people are like. Oh yeah, this is the group. You know, we're gonna impact a large amount of kids that would likely not get the opportunity. Wow. And you said they have not sent anyone to the space camp despite their initial goal was to send 4 kids.
Well, and right here on the slide that you're on, it says, we have an astonishing amount of media outlets that are waiting, standing by, right? Like operators standing by, eagerly awaiting to publish an article. And I tell you, and y'all all watching this can go do this. Go on Google and search for Gaaays in Space scholarships.
I found 2
The
articles.
only reference is their Facebook posts and their own website. So there were not media outlets anxiously standing by, like on their marks, like ready to like publish stuff. Like there was no media attention for this thing at all, right? Maybe in part because they didn't actually give any scholarships.
Yeah.
And right here, they say their initial goal was to send 4 kids thanks to $20,000 that Jane Jorgensen had given them. That's the dedicated follower and believer. She's a member of their board. They call her the scholarship director. She gave them 20 grand, and then they go to NSS and they get another 25,000. So here we are with $45,000, right? To put that into perspective, one of the organizations that we love, and wherever you are, there's a local chapter of this, but it is Meals on Wheels. For the San Antonio chapter of Meals on Wheels, they deliver meals to seniors. Oftentimes, that person delivering that meal is the only social contact they're going to have. We did a great impact campaign with them last year for their end of the year. Like, absolutely love this organization. Every $7 provides a meal for a senior. And in San Antonio, here in Bexar County where I live, they serve 9,000 meals a day. So here we are thinking about, like, how far would $45,000 have gone to feed seniors at an organization like Meals on Wheels? And then here we are collecting $45,000 for Gaaays in Space, and they haven't even given a single scholarship after promising to do it and after launching this whole program. It's a mess.
Yeah, I see a lot of celebrities endorsing this. Are they aware of this? I even see like people like Seth MacFarlane partnering with Gaaays in Space.
They gave the Orville, and if you haven't watched the Orville, there's an amazing story. This character Topa is the child of 2 of the characters on this kind of fake Star Trek parody show, and in this society, gender, everyone is male, but a very small percentage are born female and receive an operation to become male. But the child learns about it, and so it's kind of this like reverse trans allegory, and they won an award. And I was there and I helped film it, and we had a couple actors from the show and whatnot. Like, it was a big deal. But you know, they piggybacked onto something big to make it about themselves. And that's their MO. Like, that's how they were able to get you know, this interview here with Seth MacFarlane, which again was like, I think their last contact with Seth MacFarlane. Like, he was involved because they were winning an award.
Okay, so
this is a great important slide here. In their grant application, and if you go to dandeevylies.com,
which I have, I have.
You can see the actual grant application in its entirety. I have that up as a PDF, so you don't take my word for it. Go look at it yourself. But in that screenshot you were on, that's their proposed budget for their scholarship program. Why does a scholarship program need a venue? Why does a scholarship program need an AV budget? Right? So yeah, so scroll down. I think it's at the top of the third page. And they're talking about what the money goes to. That's a Comic-Con budget. That's not a scholarship program budget. And I'll tell you exactly what happened. Dan was gambling.
No way.
So Dan said, I'm going to go put on this convention. This convention is going to make all this money. Now, if you read all of this stuff in this document, at no point does he say that the money is going to go to his convention. Right? He says it's going to a scholarship program, who he's going to send. Like, so this budget here, I think this was their way that if they got caught, they could be like, no, it was very clear the money was going to a venue. Even though every word in the document says it's going to go to creating scholarships. Dan wanted to make a bunch of money. He wanted to make a profit doing this convention, but it was his first convention. Star Trek is not that popular compared to other things. And then they put this diversity and inclusion brand on that. And so I think a lot of people were like, well, I'm not gay. This convention is not for me. And they would have been welcome. Like 400%, they would have been welcome. But it's because the diversity and inclusion element is such a big part of the brand. A lot of people are like, look, I just want to meet Captain Janeway. I don't want to meet Captain Picard. Like they want to meet. Yeah. And so there's an audience that just want to go to Comic-Con. And there's a small audience that want to go to a diversity and inclusion event. And they painted such a tight niche that they only had 500 attendees. You know, but that didn't stop. Look at this guest list. Could you imagine a convention with 500 attendees having 20 or 30 guests like this? Like, that's unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, when I see D and Icon, I do, like, you know, me, you know, who is not part of the community, like, okay, this looks like it might just be for people part of the LGBTQ community as opposed to a con for everyone.
It's a real messaging and branding challenge. And, you know, and they've got a lot of criticism where like people are saying, oh, well, you don't even have that diverse of a, you know, of guests that are coming out. So like they had to fight really hard to try to get more people of color, more people, you know, of different classifications to kind of spec out their diversity chops. So, and a lot of the speakers have backed out. I think like 7 of the celebrities have backed out too. And I don't know exactly the reason. I know what the official reason was, but
scheduling conflicts.
Right. So I was booked for a gig and I've worked with agents for 15 years, and I know I don't want to go to this means I was booked to film something. But I mean, in Denise Crosby's case, she's the one that officiated this wedding that we'll talk about in a little bit. And she made a video talking about my good friend, Dan Deevy. So I feel like, at least on her part, it probably was a filming thing. You know, but a lot of the guests that were there last year didn't come back.
So I'm looking at all these guests now. Do you think Kate Mulgrew is aware of what's going on behind the scenes with Dan Deevy and all this, or she doesn't care because, hey, her money's in her account? You know, are they aware of this that's going on the back end?
Yeah, I talked to Joey Flaherty, who is from Alliance Agency that represents Kate. I don't know if she's exclusive with them or not. I hear great things about Joey through multiple friends that are other agents and things that have worked with him. So as far as I know, he's a good guy. But, you know, Kate was booked to appear at this event for one day for $30,000. And so for her, she's going to go in, she's going to do what she's agreed to, she's going to get paid, she's going to leave. But I think because this is a charity thing, I would imagine the average attendee probably thinks that every one of these guests is there endorsing the cause, right? And not just because they were paid.
Okay.
And we've talked about this before, right? It's a guarantee. We talked about in the Zach McGinnis stuff. So if I book you to come to my convention and I say you have a $10,000 guarantee, let's say you sell $8,000 of autographs, I have to pay you that $2,000 to make sure that you leave with 10 grand. So that's how convention appearances work. On top of that, I've got first class flights, so I have to fly you out, probably your agent, maybe your spouse. There's other things that are involved. I have to put you up in the hotel. I have to feed you. You get a per diem. You get like $75 per day to be there. So even though Kate Mulgrew will make her $30,000, I have no doubt that and they've sold away missions and special tickets for her. But unless they've blown the money on something else, they will have the money for Kate Mulgrew. I'm not worried about that. But down the line, you hear about people who, these are celebrities. Oh, they didn't reimburse me for my flight. I was told this literally yesterday, but from one of the guests going this year, they said, this year will be a financial loss for me, but I'm going because I want to network with the other Star Trek actors. And so they know they're going to lose money. One of the guests told us that they want to go have lunch with their friend, so they're going to go to the event. like the reasons for some of these guests to go, and they go, we're not going back next year, but we signed a contract, they've announced us, and they know that if they cancel, their fans are not going to get a refund. And so there's been, because eventually they're going to run out of money, and we know they already owe $25,000 that hasn't been unpaid, and that's just the two debts I know about, right? How much did they owe the Marriott? How much did they owe, like all these different pieces? There's probably more debts that I'm not aware of.
I'm looking at this list and I'm like, this is not some small event that their $25,000 budget is going to cover. So they have to have more money somewhere coming in to put together such an event, because the $30,000 just given to Kate Mulgrew, that seems like a lot. Like, what are some of these other people, like a Michelle Hurd or a Mark Jackson, getting?
And did you watch while the SAG-AFTRA strikes were going on?
No.
So Michelle Hurd was out there with Jerry Ryan, who was 7 of 9 in Voyager, and Michelle was like a superstar of the strikes. And so Gaaays in Space at this event this weekend is going to give Michelle Hurd an award, just like they gave an award to the Orville. They're going to give an award to Michelle Hurd so that they can pose next to her, so that then all the press will be about how Michelle Hurd earned an award. And they're doing that just to have that implied endorsement that she supports what they're doing. And I don't know that she knows about the debts. I know that we have friends that are in contact with her, and I don't know how much she's been told. People have been tweeting at her and stuff, but it's a lot of these people don't tweet for themselves. You know what I mean? They have social media managers and stuff, and Mark Hamill liked your tweet. In that case, it is Mark Hamill, but a lot of times it's not.
Okay, all right. So now we got what looks to be a text message from Dan, where he says, so all this to say, please consider the source of information and their behavior that everyone has seen. Compare that to your in person firsthand experience with me. Sorry, one last thing. I had to be completely vetted.
That's talking about me. Is my behavior in pulling up all these documents and in talk. Yeah.
So he's aware that you may be considered. Is it a detractor?
I mean, we've been posting the documentation. So Mike Slamer did get some payments in part because we called this out. So us drawing attention to this has helped some people get some partial payments, and then calling out the scholarship program and how they hadn't given any scholarships yet. Now this year, after collecting $45,000, they're promising to give one scholarship at their 2024 event, because we know they're in so much debt, right? So their hope is that, and I'm sure that this is going to be a much smaller, they're going to spend a lot less money on the venue, on they're going to save money in as many places as they can. And they're going to save money on one key thing, which we haven't talked about yet, but we will. And the hopes that way they'll be able to raise some of that money. But anything they raise is already $25,000 in the hole from the money they haven't paid to the fan, to the AV guy, right? Yeah. So, and I mean, I've been in business since, 2009. out here in Texas, and like, if you have this giant $25,000 debt hanging over your head, it makes choices for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
everything is money motivated at this point.
Oh yeah. And when you're trying to like scrounge money, just like that sponsorship, right? Whoever that sponsor was, their intention was not for that money to go to pay down debt.
Right.
Not by any stretch.
They're looking for a picture of a kid or some kids entering into the space program that they can put on their company panel to say, hey, we sent these kids to school. Now, do people know that Gaaays in Space, the organization, is actually delinquent in the state of California, according to the Attorney General's website? Dan
Deevy made a post, and he said, so when you're a nonprofit in the United States, you have a federal 501c3 status.
Mm-hmm.
You have a home state. Gaaays in Space's home state is California, and you can see right there, and anybody, if you go to dandeevylies.com, there's two links, one to the California Attorney General and one to the Philadelphia Attorney General. If you go to California, it's all public record. So this is not me sharing any state secrets, but type in Gaaays with 3 A's, space with 3 A's, Gaaays in Space, and it'll bring you to this page that you're on, and you can see all the documents where they've been delinquent over multiple years. This was a notification they were doing raffles when they weren't allowed to. They had at the end of the year, we fill out a W-2, we do our taxes. A charity does a 990. That's the name of the tax form. Mm-hmm. They didn't file their 990 for 3 years. They've been a nonprofit since 2019. They've only filed 2 years of their 990, right? So that's like 4 or 5 years that they should have filed, and they've only filed 2. And that led it once you have 3 years where you haven't paid, you get your nonprofit status revoked. And so for like a year and a half, and I don't have the exact dates on that, but they had to use what's called a fiscal agent, where the organization Foundation for the Future, which I think is out of DC or Virginia, they acted as like the sponsor of Gaaays in Space, and they were basically using Foundation for the Future's nonprofit status to stay operational. And that's probably when I was helping them, which is so insane that like I was literally helping an organization that I didn't even realize had their nonprofit status revoked. This is the Pennsylvania site. They're not registered in Pennsylvania. Zero results found. So they're not allowed to legally operate in Pennsylvania, where the event kicks off tomorrow.
What made you start digging into this story?
There are some co-founders of Gaaays in Space and some people who were very close. Randy Frank is one who he named Gaaays in Space, right? But he was chased off by Dan Deevy. And Randy is one of the stories on here. That one from Anna back there always breaks my heart because I've always been like the big brother. I don't know about your like sibling mix, but I've got 2 sisters that I would take a bullet for. And hearing about him screaming at Anna over freaking Lil Nas X.
Old Country Town Road.
He's gonna harass a woman over Lil Nas X. Leave Lil Nas. He's a gay charity guy. Shouldn't he be happy about Lil Nas X?
We got to stop the gay on gay violence, guys. We got to stop that.
Is he jealous that Lil Nas X like Dan wants to be the king of the gays, and anytime another gay is popular, he no, that's my spotlight. It's like there's plenty of room for all of us.
Yeah, and Randy Frank made the allegation that he turned the charity into something just for his personal gain.
Yes. Later on in one of the slides, there's a look at a 2020 financial document, and the organization lost $13,000 that year. Now, for a business to lose money, that's normal, right? You write it off, whatever. For a charity to lose money, that's a big deal. And so Gaaays in Space collected only $23,076. But they spent so much more than that they lost $13,565 that year. I don't even know how that makes sense. Well, because eventually there's no money in the account, right? Like unless it's money from last year, but we know they never have any money because they're always spending it. They're sending the founders to conventions. He goes and speaks at Comic-Con. And so then he gets an all expense paid trip to go to San Diego Comic-Con and have a booth where they sell a little bit of merch. Like, but then look at this rent expense. He paid himself. He reimbursed himself $10,800 for rent. Now that's probably legal. Don't get me wrong. It's probably legal for him to if like this is my off. I work out of it. This is my home. This is the master bedroom of my house. It's a big 20 foot deep by 15 feet wide office master bedroom for some reason. I don't know why it's so big. But so this is my office. I don't reimburse myself for rent for this office. I maybe should. I should maybe take.
I think I know what happened here. Because the tax time is recently the deadline's come upon us. So when you own a business that lost $13,000, you know what that comes to? That's money you write off from your personal taxes.
Not for a charity.
It doesn't work like that?
It doesn't work like that for a charity. So he paid himself. So they lost $13,000, and $10,000 of the loss was the rent that he paid. And so that was money that he gave back to himself. So they posted a $13,000 loss, and he still paid himself all that money. And so it's just like,
I don't know. It could be some manipulation for the next year, the next time they report, to say, hey, we starting off with a loss.
Totally.
So,
but they don't owe any taxes. We're all tax exempt.
Yeah.
So there's not you want to post a loss so you can write it off like in a normal business. Yeah, this is very weird. That's money that went right into Dan Deevy's pocket.
This is a wild story, and I'm looking at all these. What was it? Suspended? Wait. It was suspended.
And Dan will show you his federal document that says, "Here's our charity federal document. We are fine. There's no problem." But then in recent posts, they're saying we've hired new accountants to make sure our stuff is right, because they were shut down for being delinquent. And in California, they're still delinquent. So to be clear, if you are delinquent in California, you are not supposed to operate at all. You cannot solicit a single dollar anywhere in the country if your home base is California, because they are a California nonprofit. No matter where they go, they were still originally registered and their home base is California. They can change that. They could move it if they wanted to, but they haven't. Their headquarters is in New York, and just like Pennsylvania, if you go on the New York website, you will not find Gaaays in Space registered in New York. You go to Pennsylvania, where they're holding the event tomorrow. They're operating without a business permit. They have no registration. When we go to FanX in Utah, the Peter Mayhew Foundation registers as a foreign agent. It takes 5 minutes. It's not hard. You don't need permission. You just go register, right? It's like, you go on LegalZoom and you get a business license in an hour, right? It's not hard. But they just never bothered to do it because Dan is a horrible leader, a horrible organizer, and he just wants to host parties and put himself on stage and get trashed at conventions. That's what he wants to do.
And it looks like they also
other less things we won't talk about on YouTube that adults like to do behind closed doors.
And it looks like they lost their tax exemption status too.
Well, and then
2020.
This is a 2020 document. And then if you look to the other one, they still are recommending that they revoke it in 2023. So 3 years go by and they're still in all this mess, right?
Okay, let's play devil's advocate.
Attorney General in California on the document because their drama went on for so long that the Attorney General's term ended or he got voted out. It's a different Attorney General. That's how long their trouble was. It's nuts.
Let's play devil's advocate. Could it be a possibility that they got reinstated in 2024?
If you go on that California website right now, today, and I think you have it pulled up.
I have it right here. I'm like,
those are delinquent right now as we record. And to be honest with you, I check every couple of days. You can see right there at the top, registry status.
Yeah. Damn. And I did look this up today, guys. This is literally
you can see right there. Thursday, April 18th, they're going to have downtime. That's not an old screenshot. That is their current status. And if you're delinquent, you're not supposed to operate at all. The only thing you're allowed to do is get your filing resolved. You're supposed to stop operations until you get it sorted.
Damn. The evidence is the evidence, guys. I don't know what to say. I was trying to shoot him some bail, and then I realized, we did look it up. So, moving right along, he did have this what looks to be an expensive wedding. I can't imagine she's officiating.
Going down this rabbit hole now. We're going down this rabbit hole.
I cannot imagine she's officiating for free.
She was not.
Okay.
I don't have any of the details for what her guarantee was or what the numbers were, but to talk about the wedding, we have to talk a little bit about how they presented the wedding. There should be a schedule on one of these slides that talks about, and it is actually a 2 birds with 1 stone screenshot. Yep. Okay, so this is a document from March of 2023, and you can see very clearly Dan and Rich wedding, officiated by Denise Crosby, right? Like they very clearly said that that's what that was. And then if you go to that schedule one, first, the really important thing in the middle there is that was their scholarship panel in 2023. They had scheduled to give scholarships on the schedule. It was in the programming. But they took it out because they were losing so much money.
Okay.
Why were they losing so much money? Because of that 6 p.m. slot down there. Union, right? It's a secret Union of Sci-Fi and Science event, and it just says hosted by Denise Crosby. Well, if it's hosted by Denise Crosby and it's a union, what's it a union of? It's the union of Dan Deevy and Rich Hart. It's their wedding that was planned from the beginning, and a lot of the audiovisual spend that they had was for the wedding.
And we're
talking big. I was there in the front row filming the whole thing.
I'm like, hey, you were there, right?
Yeah. And my friend Jackie was the photographer. Like we were friends. So we were like, we at the time we had fallen for the whole thing. And when we left, we were not paid, to be clear. Like we didn't ask to be paid. Like we volunteer, we help people. So like that's the wedding reception after. And then and that's a special outfit. It's based on Schitt's Creek. I haven't seen Schitt's Creek, but Denise Crosby is an amazing human being. Like I don't have an unkind word to say about her. She was very, very kind to us. But she's very much a former client of Zach McGinnis. If that doesn't, sorry, Denise, I love you, but you used to work for Zach and you adored him too, and now you adore Dan Deevy, and here we are again. But so this is the Saturday night after party of the convention. Does that look like an after party, or does that look like a wedding reception?
It's definitely giving wedding reception vibes. I see circular tables. They're
and there
dancing.
was a separate feet there in the background. If you look behind Denise's hat, you can see like this backdrop there. So like everybody was coming in and taking pictures with the 2 grooms, with Denise. All like it was a wedding reception, and it was like, hey, please come back. And it was catered. There was food. Like again, all paid for by charity dollars.
Was it open bar? Or was it cash bar?
I was so busy filming, and I'm in this photo. If you look at like over there on the right, the guy holding, this is before I had a beard, but I'm holding up my camera. I'm filming them dancing, and I'm smiling because I was having a blast. I thought that the mission was, I thought that they were, this is just celebrating all the good that they're doing, right?
Yeah.
Yep, that's me right there in the corner.
Okay, so you thought you were. I think a lot of people have been getting duped by this guy because the cause seems so righteous and noble. But when you start looking at where the money goes, it looks to be funding weddings and booking venues and primarily.
Let's talk about the legality of funding the wedding. So in the email chain to Mike Slamer, they talk about how they are going to empty out Dan's new husband's 401k and all of his retirement accounts to pay the Marriott down so that they can start selling tickets.
I think I seen this. It was
it's in the screenshot one. Yeah. So Rich and I have decided to liquidate his entire retirement account to be able to pay down the wedding. And so they're like, could you imagine you get married and what's your honeymoon? Your honeymoon is tens of thousands of dollars of debt. And you go to your new husband, Rich, and you say, hey, Rich, I love you. I need you to empty out. And Rich is like a programmer, like he makes a good salary. I need you to empty out every piece of retirement you've ever saved up.
We've got to have money.
Yeah.
It says that they're liquidating his entire retirement fund. And if you don't, I mean, I've had to like liquidate some like Roth IRAs or whatever. You get a tax penalty for that.
Yeah. They take a hefty
income when you receive that money, right? So their tax, they had to pay like 20 to 40% of taxes after they liquidated that retirement fund and they didn't give any to the AV guy. They didn't give any to the guy that they borrowed $15,000 from.
Yeah.
And so it's this whole like, you know, okay, so you liquidated his entire life savings and it still wasn't enough? Like, how big of a hole were you guys in? Unless he had $11 in his retirement account, like, how big of a hole did this convention create? And then you can see it in that email to Mike where they're saying they're selling next year's tickets to pay last year's debts, meaning that they're going into a whole new show already in debt. That's not the way to do it.
I would feel so defrauded as an investor or someone who's given to this charity just to learn that, hey, the charity I'm giving to has not sent one kid to the space camp. The space camp is not even aware of this program existing.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's how I felt, because we donated a ton of time. You know, we went out there, we set several days aside and then multiple days of editing to deliver all. You know how it is.
Yeah.
You don't just take a picture and it's done, right? You shoot video, you edit it, you make different cuts. I had a cool video where it was like each time they were doing their vows, it alternated to the different person speaking like, and we were in our hotel room until 2 a.m. making their wedding video so they had it the next day. All right. And I felt so, but then I platformed this guy. You know, I made him look better by making those videos. And I feel so, but people ask me like, why does this bother you so much? And it's like somebody like Anna or Randy, who was truly wronged by Dan Deevy. I don't know if you have somebody that was like your abuser in your life. I do. Like my stepdad was really like knocked the hell out of me, would like slam my head into a concrete table. Like, and if all of a sudden somebody I liked was like telling everybody how great my stepdad was, it's like,
it would drive me crazy.
You're in like bizarro land. You're like, how can you say he's a good person when he just took $45,000 from a scholarship fund and spent it on his wedding?
I definitely have a person in my life that's like that. But there was some drama regarding the wedding, because if my research is correct, he told everyone that the funds for the wedding was not coming from charity, right?
Yes. And so when he talks about liquidating their retirement account, I believe that, and again, this is Matthew Egan's opinion. This is not, I don't have evidence of this, but they donated money to the charity. They liquidated his retirement account to pay for the event. But the way the laws are, and I don't know about California versus Texas, or Constant on Call is filed in Virginia, so it's a whole thing. But if I were to donate my personal money to Constant on Call and use it to buy an Ewok, right? No charity value whatsoever. It's for me.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot say, hey, I'm donating this money. You're going to buy this thing that benefits me. You're not allowed to do that. It's against the law. So Dan donating money to Gaaays in Space and then using that money for his own wedding is personal gain. And that's what you're not, like, it is illegal to use charity funds for personal gain. His wedding reception, and he says, well, it was a surprise. It was a last minute thing. But we have documents here that show it was on the schedule. It was discussed with the AV company. It's right there in the contract for the talent. And yes, celebrities going to this show sent me their contracts because Dan thinks they're all his best friends. They're not. And you can see what they put public facing, that union of sci-fi and science.
Yeah, right here.
And then they're trying to say it wasn't a wedding.
No.
So in the public facing schedule, it said Union of Sci-Fi event on the same schedule that says they're going to give the scholarships that they didn't give.
I see straight through it. This was a reception. The gala was the reception.
Right.
That's all it was.
Hey, they call it the gala, but again, it had the groom's first dance. It had everybody taking pictures with the grooms. Like it was a cheesy way to get like a celebrity filled wedding, like, I'm having this event to raise money, but I'm also going to get married. Why is D&I Con in Philadelphia? Really easy question. They're a California nonprofit. Their headquarters is in New York. How do we get to Philly from that? That's where Dan's fiance, now husband, is from. That's where his family lives.
Oh,
so they chose Philadelphia to host the event so that his family could attend the wedding.
And not have to fly out. Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Wow. What now? Like that piece right there makes it all. It's like the nail on the coffin for me. For me, it's just too much coincidence is going on surrounding their wedding. His family is there. Okay, my family don't want to fly out to California. Maybe I could imagine a flight from Philly to California, probably not the cheapest.
Nope. Well, the hotels in Philly are insanely expensive. This year, I think the hotel prices are between $240 a night and $300 a night. And with that many guests, and just assume that every guest has a +1, they might even need a second room if it's their handler or their agent or whatever. Mm-hmm. That is going to cost them a fortune.
Where's all this money coming from, man? Because this is bigger than.
They're hoping to have higher ticket sales. People have been telling me they've seen advertisements for Gays in Space because they're trying to get more people to attend. But again, we've talked about this. Their brand is this gay diversity and inclusion thing, which I love. I think it's great. But the average American is just not thinking about, oh, I want to go to a conference about diversity and inclusion. They either want to go to a place, a Comic-Con, and meet celebrities, or it's like an academic thing on diversity where they want to see like doctors speaking about psychology of diversity and like they're trying to have they're attaching this diversity and inclusion thing to it so that they can get credit for it being, and I'll tell you, I can't name the name, unfortunately, but one of the Star Trek actresses was told, if you don't do a video from us, it will look like you hate gay people.
What? Oh, not that they're weaponizing it.
Right. And you'll see that in Dan's screenshot where he talks about me as well. A heterosexual male from Texas, or heterosexual white male from Texas is trying to bring us down because he's jealous. And it's like, I'm really not jealous. We're filming the program for special needs kids. We're working with programs like Meals on Wheels. We're helping victims of sex trafficking. We're working with disabled homeless. We're working with the county judges here. Like, there's just so many cool things that we're doing. To say that we're jealous, like, I think they would walk over glass to walk in my shoes for a day. To have all this stuff actually happening, right? Like, it's jealous is the last thing that we are.
I'm wondering which person, as I'm going through like the Gays in Space Twitter and even his personal Twitter, which are the people who were forced to do a video. And here's your dart episode where, you got to shoot darts with your favorite people. I'm wondering which of these people potentially made a video that they didn't want to make out of fear of.
None of the attendees for last year or this year because the person can't stand them. So you won't find them on the list. That probably narrows it down too much, but I will say no more.
Okay. I think we do have some more. There was a copyright strike or something that happened, that occurred.
So like I said, we were not paid, my photographer friend and I, to attend. Our hotel and our flight was covered. But the way copyright works, and you know this, but for the benefit of your viewers, if I take a picture, it's mine. I own it. I took the picture. I'm the creator of the picture. Even if you're in the photo, right? Now, if I don't have your permission to use the photo of you, I can't like sell it. But I can take a picture of you. I can post it onto my Facebook. It's mine. Right. I think once you post it to Facebook, it also becomes Facebook's. But that's a whole other.
This is a different story.
So my friend Jackie goes and takes thousands of photos between the wedding at the event itself, and then she also photographed the Quaker wedding that they had on Sunday after the convention ended. They had 2 weddings. So there was another wedding with more of the new husband's family. And they told me, they said, none of Dan's family is here because they hate that he's gay. I have now recently spoken to members of Dan's family, and they said, not only do we not hate gay people, but we actually helped fund Gays in Space when he was first starting out. We paid his bills. He slept in my basement. Like there were real and then he's out there. I just can't imagine like supporting my family member and then getting stabbed in the back by being told all over the country that, oh, my family hates gays. That's why only Rich's family is here. Like, that is a complete lie, I've learned, right? And so it was just like the farther down the rabbit hole you go, you're just like, oh my God. And his family contacted me. I didn't go looking for it. It never even occurred to me to go try to find his family. Like, it just, there was so much documentation that was in front of us that was wrong.
That is so diabolical to put that on your family and damaging.
Well, it's a lie.
Yeah.
It's just Dan will paint a picture. This is what the family member, they said that Dan is a professional victim, and I agree. Owes the family money. Like there's things that are going on there that I was told he assaulted someone. I was told he owes somebody money. Like there's, he in that email change with Mike, he says no one is stepping up to help us. Who's supposed to step up and help you? You're a charity. Do your own fundraising. Like, go do event. But business 101 for charity: spend less than you bring in. I know that's like crazy, but like if you don't have the money, don't spend it.
Okay.
And so that got us into this. So that this used to be the wedding video. Oh God. So yeah, here we are. The controversy that you are seeing online was initiated by a heterosexual white man living in Texas. He will never say my name, because if he says my name, they will go look at my Facebook or whatever. They'll see all the posts and all the discussions and all the comments and stuff. He can't write us off as bullies if he ever identifies us, right? Which also means I can never sue him for defamation because he never says my name.
I didn't know it worked like that.
Very upset that an LGBT organization pulled off an unprecedented event, unprecedented amount of debt, maybe. I think only Austin St. John owes more money than Gaaays in Space. But his all-consuming jealousy. Jealous of what?
I mean,
literally, Kate Mulgrew is coming to San Antonio this summer. Like, why would I care about going to Philadelphia and spending $300 a night when I can just go to the Alamo Dome and see more Voyager cast members here in my own town? Like,
so where is the evidence that he said he shared disproving the accusations?
So this is where I said that he shares his federal tax document for the 501c3.
Mm-hmm.
And that does say that they're a nonprofit. But then if you look at the California document, so he shares the federal one. He says, see, they're lying. But if you go to the website, and it's actively right now on the website, it says delinquent. And then if you go to look at the definitions, it says, while delinquent, you cannot operate at all. So he keeps pulling up like old documents, and then he had like a legal advisor, Joshua Brown, and he was like, we are working with California to resolve these issues, which is the right answer, right? Like if Dan would just tell the truth, if Dan just came out and said, listen, there have been a lot of things that have come up and they're true. And I am doing my best to improve, and I'm asking for help, and I'm trying to get better. But he won't do that because he has to put on this bravado, he has to put on this face that he's this great guy worthy of being on a stage. He can never admit that anything is less than perfect. And so, and let me tell you, when you take video or photos of Dan, the amount of like, hey, make sure the angle is right, and hey, make sure, downward angle, and don't make my neck fat look bad. Like he stresses out beyond belief because it's all about his image. And then he gets into this thing here where he says he was vetted by the federal government in order to speak at the United Nations.
Yeah, what the hell is that about? He said that
a few different times in these screenshots, right?
Has he ever spoken at United Nations?
So he spoke at a United Nations General Assembly meeting over Zoom. Okay. And he brags about that in all capital letters.
They probably was like, okay, he's not going to pull a prank on the Zoom call. That's probably what they're looking at. They're like, hey, we don't want you pranking on the Zoom call.
The federal government doesn't decide who can speak before the UN. The UN is literally a separate body that does its own vetting or whatever. And like Gaddafi spoke at the UN, right? That is not the like, oh, I'm cool, I spoke at the UN. Like, dude, you were on a Zoom call and, what, half of the nations in the UN would stone you to death if you were in their country. Like it's not, you didn't change any minds over Zoom, dude. Like,
now,
but he acts like he was this peacemaker, and he like, oh my God.
he exaggerates. Now, what happens if he comes out and says, look, guys, I've been diagnosed with some mental health issues, and all of my debt and my poor decisions are from my poor mental health. What would you say to that? Would you think people will say you're attacking someone who's mentally unfit, or, you know, how do you think that will play out? Because I'm thinking about like the out for him. How can he save himself from potential backlash or maybe discredit you? And you said he's a perpetual victim. Do you think he'll go the mental health route? So
the narcissist playbook cannot. There's this whole Darbo thing where they deflect because they cannot. There's something in their ego where they cannot accept responsibility. I'll give you a great example. So content on call. One of our pieces, we make content for charities, but we also mentor. We have done some mentoring. We never did receive the NSS grant. And our program for the mentoring was we were going to help underserved kids to get the FAA trust certificate so they could fly drones recreationally. It's a full-blown like certificate from the FAA if you complete it. So, but without any of that funding, we've already gone and gotten kids that certificate, right? Because it's something we believed in regardless of whether or not somebody was paying us to do it. But we haven't done a ton of it, right? So when I look at content on call, I feel like we've created a lot of really great content. And yeah, if you go to contentoncall.org, you can see, that's our Mayhew hospital trip, a program to put telescopes in schools. We made the video for that. Our Meals on Wheels program, which has Esther, who is an amazing 103-year-old woman here in San Antonio who has been receiving Meals on Wheels for 30 years. This video you got playing is from the Mayhew Foundation. We made this video. We took, just this past winter, we took $75,000 of toys to kids in hospitals, traveling from Texas all the way to Orlando. And so, I'm aware of my shortcomings. I'm aware of the things that I'm trying to do that, and I'll be the first to admit, right? But Dan doesn't have that ability to be humble. And if he did, I don't think anybody would hate him. I think that if he comes out and he will say, well, I'm not perfect, as if that's what we expect. But he won't say like, hey, I bit off more than I could chew, and our first year was in severe debt. Okay. He never will come across weak. And if he had just said, hey, but again, he made the choice to host his wedding. He made the choice to buy all that AV. So that's a little bit more than like just a lapse of judgment. He paid for his wedding with charity funds. Yes, he donated a lot to the charity, but you're not allowed to donate and earmark, oh, this is going to go to my wedding, right? The wedding should have been in a separate venue at, only paid for by him and Rich. It should have like, hey, we're going to go get married. If you want to come, great. Like none of it should have been related to a charity event.
Speaking of Rich, has he said anything about this?
I liked Rich a lot.
Because he cannot be like, he's not like, his head can't be in the ground. He has to be complicit in this.
He's a very mellow dude. One of the hardest things for me on this was that, I thought Dan and Rich were both my friends. And then Rich also blocked me when I was starting to speak out against Dan. But I hear from some of the celebrities that we talk to that Dan puts Rich down to the celebrities. So like, no. He's trashing. They haven't even been married for a year, and he's already putting him down. Like, I feel bad for Rich, because if I had been working and I went to school and I got the great education and I got my certifications and I was a programmer and I was doing all this stuff, and I had to empty out my entire life savings to help my new husband put on a Comic-Con that was failing, or to make up for the fact that my new husband's Comic-Con was failing. Like, I think Rich, he's so down the rabbit hole with Dan that he doesn't realize that he's Dan's meal ticket. And, the whole thing just breaks my heart, because I feel like Rich is a good guy, and he's trying his best to support his man. and I wish that wasn't the case. He's saying he emptied out the 401k. Like, imagine that honeymoon. We just got married. Yeah. We're on stage. But then this is a place where some of the money is coming from too. They announced at the last minute that their primary sponsor,
United States Air Force.
United States Air Force.
How do you pull a sponsor with, like, is the United States Air Force not?
They didn't. Nobody did their due diligence at the Air Force to say, hey, is this even a legit organization? Are they delinquent? Are they allowed to, like, the Air Force giving them money was against the law, not for the Air Force, but for Gaaays in Space to solicit it. It's right there on the California AG website. You are not allowed to operate or solicit. Solicit means asks for money while you are delinquent. But Gaaays in Space collected money from the Air Force anyway. I was in the Air Force. Like this hits close to home. I was only in the Air Force for about 5.5 months because I got hurt. It was a whole thing. But I was, my grandfather was Air Force. Like this, the Air Force backing them is just like, kick me while I'm down, because like nobody checked that they were delinquent. Nobody checked about their debts. And Dan keeps saying, I can pass a background check. Right. Anyone that has not been convicted yet.
A felon, can pass a background check.
Freaking Austin St. John can pass a background check.
I don't know about that. I don't know. He got the charge. He can't lead a country. He got the charge. He can't lead a country.
He was already indicted.
Okay, so it looks like the United States Air Force is their primary sponsor. How do they get in contact? Did they apply for it and they just came out, or do you think?
But you can see here, like, so a lot of the people, and this had nothing to do with us. A lot of people are like, why are the Air Force recruiters going to be at a diversity and inclusion event? Because, like, don't ask, don't tell. There's a lot of history between the LGBTQIA community and the military, and you can see right here, opportunities will be available to talk career professionals from Space Force.
Oh yeah,
that's recruiters. There's going to be recruiters at an LGBT event, and people were in the comments like, "Dude, this is a bad look." But you can see at the bottom of that screenshot, Gaaays in Space limited who can comment on this post. Oh, and if you don't believe me, if you watch this video, like, oh, he's a hater, he's a hate monger, like somebody else recently.
Oh God, don't get me started.
He's a hate monger. Go on their Facebook, go on their Instagram, and ask, hey, what happened to the $45,000 that you collected to give scholarships? You will be instantly banned, and your comment will be deleted every time. You can see it right here. They limited who can comment because they don't want the bad press. They don't want to deal with what I love negative comments, because I feel like if there's somebody who says something negative, then they will see my grace. They will see me giving a good answer, right? Like, that's what an adult does. They respond to criticism. But Gaaays in Space and Dan, they block people, they delete it, they don't want to hear it. They've got their head in the sand. The board, I've sent, like 12 emails to the board, to as many board members as I have email addresses for, which isn't all of them. But I've been like, hey, here's examples. Here's what you guys promised in this grant application. Here's what you did. No scholarships. This was a lie. Right. And so it's like I've sent, so they know. They absolutely, and they're doing this thing where they're saying, oh, well, now Gaaays in Space is in phase 2.
I was on the website and I saw that.
But Dan is still the president. And if anybody asks about debt, they say, hey, Dan handles all the expenses.
Okay. So he's basically taking the money, getting into debt, and then he's robbing Peter to pay Paul. I hate to say like Ponzi scheme. But
robbing Peter to pay Paul, I think, is the right. I don't know what this would fall under, because
he's not. People are not investing, but he's behind. So any new money goes to old projects.
There's a business line, and I say this all the time. Sales solves all sins. If you get more money in, it will make up for a lot of mistakes, right? And that's a business thing, not a charity thing. But like, if you're in debt and you get $100,000 contract, you're probably not in debt anymore, right? Because you made so much money on that big win. So Dan's philosophy is that if he can just get enough sales, if he can just generate enough money and get enough donations and get the Air Force to back them and all these different things, he says he's partnered with Hulu. Hulu shut them down. Like, I don't think Hulu knows that they're on that website. The number of places that they don't work with anymore, like they're not going to be at the Earthlight event again. Like there's things that are.
What about New York Comic Con? They're going to be at New York Comic Con?
They're not sponsored by San Diego Comic Con. They exhibited there with an exhibitor, right? But they put it on there like it's one of their partners. really,
this is a little cringe, man. Why do you think it's not getting more coverage outside of you and the website?
I think the threats of if you don't support gays in space, you must hate gay people, is
because I saw on the website there is a disclaimer that we don't hate gay people. So basically, if you speak out against this, you hate gays, and if you don't speak out it, you support it. Is that like the sentiment that he's kind of putting out in the atmosphere?
Like so right there in that photo to the right of Denise Crosby, that's Inara Tabir. She was one of the co-founders of Content on Call. She's trans. Like, we worked with her happily. She's no longer with us, but we worked, she stayed at my house. Like, and it's like, I don't want to come across like I have a black friend kind of an excuse here, but like, I think you would be my black friend. But like, I'm not trying to give that excuse, but it's just like,
look at my African American.
We know
look at
how marginalized communities are shit on.
Mm-hmm.
We watch. And so part of our mission with Content on Call is to tell the stories of people who have felt that harm and have risen above it or are fighting against it, or how it ruined their lives. Like, whatever that is, whatever that truth is, we want to tell that story. So for them to say like, oh, it's just because you hate gay people, it's because you're this. And he loves using Texas. Don't get me wrong, Texas politics.
Texas is
not a great place to be gay, not a great place to be trans. Like I 4,000% agree. I'm staying in Texas so I can vote those things down. A lot of people leave, right? I'm staying here so that I can be part of the solution and not part of the problem, right? So like this whole, he's doing to me what he says we're doing to him by lumping me into this like Texas, whatever.
Yeah, I like how he did throw that in his text, heterosexual white man. Why you throw a white man in there?
Read and stuff, but an unending libelous assault. I'll tell you. So I'm going to say this factually. I'm not saying I know this is true. I received a message that said that there were some sexual assault allegations. Okay, I don't have documents on that, right? And I'd love to support this person that sent me this information, but I don't have like receipts, right? So I didn't include it on the website. I didn't include it in anything that I've posted because I can't validate it. Every single person that made one of the stories that are at the very bottom of the website, they were willing to put their names on it. And I have the whole chat transcript where they told me what their experience was. That is their personal statement on this matter. And so this whole like, oh, it's libel. No, that is that person's lived experience. Anna Kelly was screamed at. Laz Marquez tried to donate art to an LGBT org, and Dan harassed him saying he was donating to the right one, or to the wrong one. Mike Slamer was, because it was a charity, he gave them a bunch of leeway. And then my own story, when I met Dan, he talks about all of his enemies. All these people are out to get him. He's just 24/7, he's a victim. And you go like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And at first you believe it. But then you go talk to those people that he hates, those people that he say hate him. And they're like, oh no, he did this and this. And then they'll show you the receipts.
Yeah.
And so it's like Randy, he named the org. Gays in Space was Randy's idea.
A lot of people named it.
Paying all the bills.
Yeah, like
this comes from Laurel. Laurel's my girlfriend, just full disclosure. But I was in the car when this happened, and you could hear Dan on the other end of the phone. JG Hertzler, one of the Klingons that will be at the event, told me, well, I don't believe that you could hear the other side of a conversation if they were holding the phone up to their ear.
And
I was like,
when people are loud.
Dan is screaming. You definitely could hear the other end of that conversation. And he was screaming at her. This is his executive director at the time. And we're in the car, and the car was off, so it was really quiet. And we were just hearing him blow her up. And he was swearing and he was screaming. Like, it was that they hate each other, don't get me wrong. But like, that's not how you treat a team member, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Callie Wright is out here with it's very telling when people are willing to put their name on it, because right now everyone's so scared of backlash. They're scared of blowback. They like, hey, I don't want to destroy my relationships. I don't want to destroy my career by making an accusation against someone who may have more leverage in the community than them. So this is very telling that all these people made statements and they said, hey, yep, Taylor Habiger This was my experience paying for Dan's bar tab. Like this is I want to say crazy, but like this story is out there. But I gotta imagine that there are a lot more Dan Deevys out here racking up debt, defrauding donors allegedly. I mean, I gotta say allegedly, but there's a lot of proof to show that it's true. So what do you think I say
that on the website, there are probably some details that we got wrong, right? But the big picture, did they give any scholarships in 2023? No. Right? That's just a fact. And now Dan's like, those accusations are patently false. We've chosen who's going to get our first scholarship. And he says that as if that's like some way that, like, okay, you've made a choice, but you still haven't actually given a scholarship, right? And so it's like, but why say you're going to give scholarships at all? If their goal is just to put on conventions, just put on conventions. Like, you don't have to do this whole scholarship, underserved kids, all like, you don't have to do all that side stuff. And the brand of this being diversity and inclusion, I think, is going to hurt their attendance for 2024.
Yeah.
I think in a few days, we're going to hear about how, there wasn't enough food or there wasn't enough whatever. Or when they did the dart thing at the last event, you ever go to the dollar store and you get your daughter like a little magnetic thing, whatever, and it's on like that flimsy plastic paper? Yeah. That was what the dart boards were made out of for the throw darts with Alexander Siddig thing.
No way.
And no one knew where to go. No, like there were all these problems. Why? Where was Dan's attention? On making sure his wedding was perfect.
Wow. On
doing dress rehearsals. As the promoter of a con, he was too busy doing dress rehearsals for his convention to make sure that the things that his attendees paid for went well.
Do you think this would be his last DNI con?
I have often had, and I've had this conversation with Randy Frank, and I've told him I think that people are going to continue to give him a pass as long as someone else gives him a pass. And no one has the courage to go first and call him out. And so that's where I think a lot of these folks, I don't have a huge following. You know, I've got like 2,000-3,000 friends on Facebook and stuff. And I've got whatever, like I'm not, I never hit 30,000 subscribers on YouTube like some people I know.
Oh my goodness.
Were you at like 20 last time we talked?
I don't know,
Mr.
man.
Like hot damn. But like I have a bigger platform than most. And so I use that to make sure, hey, I spoke to this person. They told me their story. Their story is in line with what this person said. Here's 8 people that said what happened to them. Make your own decision, right? Yeah. And, my background is journalism. So I did it like I'm a documentary filmmaker. I tell stories. And so, this was, hey, here's the information, but they've taken people off of their website. There were guests that were on here that they removed, some with announcements, some without. I don't want to drag people's names into it and stuff, but there were people who were announced and then like they didn't even announce that they took I think it was because nobody cared.
Well, here's
even Spaaace only has 3,600 followers or something like that on Instagram. Like they're not they don't have a huge following themselves.
No.
So they rely on, and it's in the contract that if you are attending the event for the guests, they have to share it and tweet it. And so by booking them, he piggybacks onto their social following. And so as long as people like that will take Dan's money and not care that the AV vendor doesn't get paid, that fans, just Star Trek fans, they tried to pay the guy that loaned them $15K. They tried to pay him with autographs.
Oh, that's the Karen Ashley.
Right. Like, Karen, I love you. I heard things. I'm
sorry. I mean, what? Okay, so I get.
The order was apparently not for a film. It was for some Uber Eats. Because it certainly wasn't to make a film.
I heard it was a pizza party that was thrown, but I don't want to get too off.
I love you, but
I don't want to get too off topic.
By the way, I reached out to her and I was like, "Hey, are you still working with Zach?" And she was like, "Matthew, I have not been working with Zach in years." It was just like, okay, don't be mad.
All right,
but you did.
I think what it's going to take for Dan to finally be out of the con throwing community is if a celebrity calls him out.
Yeah. Or, so there's a case open with the California Attorney General's office for fraud, for what they're doing. There is an open case with the federal copyright infringement board for his use of images that he said were his, that they weren't. Videos I made, photos that somebody else, took that didn't belong to him. He said, "Oh, we paid you, so they're ours." That's not how it works. And you didn't pay us. You paid for our hotel and our flight. That's not the same thing. And so like there's court things happening. The family member I spoke to was like, "You're not going to win this in the court of public opinion." And I've had some terse conversations with friends who are like, "Hey, you're picking this war, leave us out of it." Right.
Well, I understand. I understand that fully and heartily. I'm going through something like that similar, but what's really important is the truth gets out there.
Right.
Truth will trump a lot of things. And that's all it takes is once the truth get out there, people can make their decisions for whether they want to believe it or not believe it. But I do think you've provided some compelling evidence that will and should sway some people's mind and how they look at him or maybe the event overall or, but, there are always going to be people who's going to support him no matter what.
And this whole thing brings me no joy. I would love to be celebrating the fact that we're heading to Philly right now to work on their next convention. Their mission resonates with me. I want to see safe places where people can have these stories. One of the reasons that we got into this kind of big fight and one of the catalysts for us diving deep, Nana Visitor, who's a national treasure, she plays Kira Nerys in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. She had a special breakout session and they were talking about some heavy topics. There were people there in wheelchairs. There were people there that were trans, that were they weren't out to their family, that they were gay. They were having like real deep conversations. And I said to them, "Hey, I'm going to take this group photo." And I got them with Nana, and they got all outside. And I said, "But I'm not going to give it to Dan. I'm not going to give it to them for their marketing. It's going to be just for you guys." And I sat there and I individually DM'd each person the photo, so that they had it for their personal use. But I didn't want some advertisement to come out with somebody's face and they're not out to their family and they get outed by an ad for a diversity and inclusion conference, right?
That was actually responsible of you.
What happens? And again, I sit there, I individually DM'd it to each of the people. And Nana was super like, "This is great. Thank you so much." People were crying. Like, it was a big deal. And I wanted them to have something from it, but I didn't want them to be afraid of posing because they were going to be used in marketing. And guess what the photo was used in? Marketing.
I hate that.
Weeks ago, we had to email Dan and we had to be like, "Dude, what the hell?" And he knew. I told him this story. I was like, "This photo was very private. It was very personal. Some of the people are not out." And he writes back, "Well, calm down. I'm working on it." And it's like, dude, how about, "I'm so sorry, I forgot"? How about take responsibility for this error? He had it in an ad selling away emissions. And it was just like, and then that's my word, right? I was there, my face, my word saying, "Hey."
Okay. Well, look, I think you put, like I said, compelling evidence, well presented. What is one last thing you want, a final word for anyone considering going, or maybe a message to Dan about how he's been conducting himself, or maybe the event overall? What's like a final message you want to put on it?
I just truly hope that there are not new victims that we're going to start hearing about on Monday. I really, I hope that there are not new vendors, because the AV vendor wasn't brought back, right? The MC was fired because he asked questions. There were a lot of things that people that didn't go back. We resigned back in November of 2023 because we just knew that Dan wasn't going to be able to buy those printers. And so I just really hope, I'm scared because, going into this, there's a lot of opportunity for harm. And, a lot of people think that celebrities are rich, and things like some of the stuff we talk about within the Power Rangers community are cash grabs, right? They're trying to make a little bit of money because they were in a TV show 20 years ago, and it doesn't pay well to be in a TV show 20 years ago, right? They don't get residuals. They, $7, whatever. And so they're always looking for ways to make money. And a lot of the talent is going to this event expecting to get paid, expecting to have their flights paid for, all that kind of stuff. And I've already been told that people see this as a financial loss because they know they're not going to get what they expect. So it just really bums me out because I know that they're good people, but they're, they make money like you and I. Like, they're not making millions of dollars. They're, sometimes they're making nothing if the gigs dry up. So I'm just really scared. I don't want to see these people harmed. I work with several of them at other events and other things, and I just hope that they go in with their eyes open, and that's what we've tried to do by getting the word out. And I hope that they kind of hold Dan accountable and don't let him, take pictures with them for an implied endorsement.
Oh,
right?
God. Yes.
He'll use those pictures for years to imply, look how interesting I am. Look at all these celebrities that support me, while he's, misusing those charity funds.
All right. Well, there you have it, everybody. That was Matthew Egan telling the Gaaays in space. I don't want to say expose, but just some facts about it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.